first world, come in and take a seat. Pay us no attention, it's all conspiracy. We have satire and parody, some funny, some perverse. If none of it's offensive to you, you'd be the first.
The Immortal Mask, a 1970s superhero crime noir adventure that follows a retired soldier who is given a covenant interview with a death row inmate. What he learns from the interview thrusts him into Atlanta's shadowy underworld. He'll have to utilize his military training to survive from being hunted for the information that could topple the most powerful ruling class in the city. This is not a pre-order or a crowdfunding campaign. Get your books now at Denali's.com.
Hey friends, Morgan Quaid here to tell you about a little project called The Crimson Folly, a D&D inspired comic anthology which takes place in a fantasy tavern called, you guessed it, The Crimson Folly. I'm working with more than a dozen artists from all over the world to bring this story to life through sequential comic artwork, intricate portrait pieces, sketches, and of course, words. My aim is to produce a combined comic story and art book. The first 40 pages will be a comic book telling the main story of the folly and using different artists to build out each section of the story. The art book will then contain sketches and short stories relating to characters from that story. So if you're a fan of D&D, fantasy artwork, comics, or just great storytelling, you'll love The Crimson Folly. Yes, you will.
Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Huh? So come get some. CromCon.
25 seconds to curtain, folks.
Ladies and gentlemen, Wild Wayne Brown is in the house.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Welcome, Wayne. Yeah, you got an audience waiting for you here. So,
I'm not used to that. I'm used to drawing and doing art and writing stuff. So
you're drawing a crowd now. So Mike Walker is here. Mike to share and say hi. Appreciate that. Nicholas Gear is here.
Hey,
and howdy. Felix Haas is in the house. Yeah, I can say that, right? It does look like Vox Machina. We'll get into that. American Comics Company, Hail Machat. J.R. Exner here to remind us of the only true savior, Xenu. And then y'all just talking amongst yourselves. So you guys keep that up. Me, I'm going to relax a little bit more here and make my evening just a little bit better, sip by sip. I'm turning the label around and keeping my finger over the thing because I don't want to start any controversies. But, Wayne, you sling the booze.
Yeah.
Have you noticed any tilt in what people order or don't order in the past week or so, say?
Well, the bar I work at's more of a whiskey bar. We don't really carry certain alcohols. We have specialty craft beers and mostly a lot of scotch, bourbons, and tequilas. Actually, we have over 200 varieties of each.
Oh,
so
wow.
We're pretty much a cocktail whiskey bar. So when it comes to beers,
high establishment.
It's like those guys that come in to get those kind of whiskeys and know what that quality is are not the guys who care about publicity and advertisement stuff.
I hear you. Well, okay, I'm a little bit of redneck in me right now. I guess I'm just drinking the beer. But
I'm actually having some bourbon here, so
I've never had bourbon. My alcohol experience is very limited.
Oh man.
I had my moment in college where whatever came out of that plastic trash can knocked me on my butt. And then I had a divorce several years ago where I learned this much over the limit of gin drunk straight from the bottle is not a good thing to do. And that's the only 2 times I've like, you know what? Yeah, let's not have that experience anymore. Let's just, be a little bit more casual about it. But I have, recently branched out. There's a local distillery and winery just a little bit down the road from me here.
Yeah.
And I bought a bottle of wine from them for the first time about 2 weeks ago. And that's how much I drink. It took me 2 weeks to go through a bottle of wine. This will be my only drink of the day. I drink like one drink a night.
I'll probably be having a couple more of these after the show and everything, but I'm having one for the show and I have a beer. But I know what you mean. But for me, being an artist, I don't know of a single artist who has not tried every alcohol known to man in their time.
Oh yeah, of course. And a little bit of absinthe and all that good stuff.
Yeah, right. Vincent van Gogh, Pablo Picasso, name one. I'm pretty sure even Michelangelo had like a couple bottles of that hard stuff they had back then.
Yeah, I know. Who's the guy who wrote The Old Man and the Sea?
Hemingway. Oh,
Hemingway. I think he should just hook it up intravenously, I think.
Oh, pretty much, right? That was breakfast, lunch, and dinner for him,
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm old school in that way, and not really by a choice in any way. It's just the way life seemed to have rolled itself around.
Following the steps of the greats,
Yeah.
So I learned, before the show here that we have 1 degree of separation. I don't think you've been on the show before in the past.
No, I have not.
But your friends all have. Marvin's been on here. Marvin Wynn, Heroinberg's been on here. So you are a part of that Comicsburg crew.
I am, yeah.
Which is bigger than I knew it was.
Yeah. Well, it started several years back. Ben Barnett, who's the artist for Heroinberg, and he was also doing a daily strip. And he was getting burnt out. So he's like, hey, can you want to join in and take over just a daily strip? And I started doing that. And then COVID hit and it wiped that stripped out of the market. We just couldn't viable anymore. So I was brought in to co-author the Heroinberg comic books for Manny over in Heroinberg. And I met Marvin at conventions. We all hang out and talk comics and sketch. In fact, they're both helping me very much in my own endeavor here, my own comic book, which I'm just now starting and have been trying to pull together for 3 years, but we'll get into that. But yeah, I know those guys very well for about 3 years now. We've been kind of working on comic books together and stuff like that and going to conventions. So
I know that the Heroinberg book, he's got also the web episodes that are live action with the ladies in cosplay doing the action. So as the artist on the book, do you draw from model sheets, or do you actually get to have the models say, okay, can you pose a little bit more like this? And then
no, I'm not that lucky. It's like, hey, send Allison over. I'm going to need to do some sketches of her in the comic. Yeah. It doesn't work that way. It's kind of cool if it would, but with some of the positions in the action of the comic book, it's kind of hard to get him to stay in that position.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Luckily,
I get that little wooden doll thing.
Yeah, I've been cartooning and drawing my whole life. So models at this point kind of get in the way of what I'm drawing, it seems like, when I'm doing comic work.
Once you're experienced, yeah.
Yeah.
It's, I had an interview with, and hey, Grant, good to see you, man. I had an interview with Tom Batchick, the guy who did the Funky Winkerbean stuff. He was in St. Louis. I met him at a hotel lobby, and they were still turning it into the aquarium. So like at the end of our interview, we're signing some stuff, and suddenly the lights all go out, and we're like, okay, what? And then the ceiling lights up, and it's like we're in a submarine, and there's fish swimming over us. And for like just 5 minutes, we just watched like we're underwater, and it was really awesome. They were testing out a show. Wow! But my point was that I had 3 of the complete Funky Winkerbean volumes with me, and I just thought he'd sign them.
Yeah.
And he took out a Sharpie, and just drew a head sketch in each one of them. Like, you don't blue line this, or he's like, I've been drawing this thing for 50 years. I can do it in my sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something that great when, but it happens all the time. I mean, I can draw, you name a character, I could probably still draw them from scratch with a Sharpie of my own, because you get into the characters and you know what their looks and their tells are, and it just becomes second nature to you, and that's how they're looking. That's how they're drawn. But when it comes into comic books with some of the body language and actions and movements and everything, it's sometimes better just to cartoon it and, just kind of make something that's more original than a photograph of something.
You do. Yeah.
And that for me is pretty much why I love doing comics and cartoons. It doesn't look like it's real, but it is kind of in that represents, and it has this nice, cool thing to it, and I like
Scott McCloud draws the line of abstraction where he's like, he's got a photograph on one side, he's got the word face on the other. It's like somewhere along here is the sweet spot for a cartoon. You get closer to realism, you get closer to abstract. Right there in the middle, he's like, and he'll take like different heads. He'll put like Charlie Brown over here on the abstract side. He'll take Alex Raymond's shot and put it over here on the realistic side, and you can it communicates it real well, I think.
Oh yeah, and that's one of the great things about it that we all kind of like. It's just cartooning is just so unique to the artist. Yeah. And that's one of the artists I've always grown up loving had that ability. Todd McFarlane, to name a few that people heard. Jack Kirby. You see Jack Kirby's drawing, it's Jack Kirby. That's the way he draws stuff. It's cartoonish, but yet has a real edge to it, and it's really cool in his own way. So as an artist, you're always trying to strive for that. Get that look, get that uniqueness that's just yours.
That's yours. And you end up copying a lot of people on the way to get there.
You do. You do.
You're learning. Jack's stuff is interesting because he did a 1976 issue of Captain America, Special Bicentennial, and it was late. And then, the bicentennial, you've got to get it out during the bicentennial year. Yeah. So they divvied up all the pages with different inkers. So it's Jack all the way through, but every time you turn the page, it's a completely different art style jumping out at you because all the inkers added their own take on things. I don't know who they were, but Jack penciled and John Byrne inked looks totally different from Jack penciled and Joe Sinnott inked.
Or Wally Wood inked, or any of those guys, and there's been a lot of great inkers who are artists. Wally Wood being one of them. Will Eisner, probably one of my favorite. His style was, for me, always very appealing. I always thought it was very unique and attractive, and it just was a great way of telling stories. He
was a master of controlling the timing too.
Huh?
He was a master of controlling the timing of a story too. I mean, he had this one page in The Spirit, and it's just this one straight on scene of an apartment, but the foreground is a faucet. So like you're standing behind the kitchen sink and you're looking at the action going on, and you just watch this water bubble forming on the lip of the faucet while everything's going on, and then it falls, and you're like, all of that took place, and he controlled the timing with that little.
I remember that.
Nothing. It was beautiful.
Yeah. It like dripped along the side of the page, and everything was going on as that drop was falling to indicate a sense of time. It was brilliant in visual storytelling. He was
very few people can do that. I mean, comics. I think 98% of the people who get into comics say, "Hey, I've got a story, and I'll illustrate it, and then put the pictures in sequence." But you get that 2%. They're like, do you know what we can do with this medium that you can't do in a movie, that you can't do in a book? Yeah. And people like the two names I always bring up, Alan Moore, Jimmy Gownley. Mm-hmm. Those two guys know exactly how to hit you with something that you're like, I've never seen that before. Mm-hmm. Less Alan these days and more Jimmy, but Alan's had his heyday. He doesn't need the money anymore.
Well, like when you talked about comics earlier, one of my favorite most mind-blowing in that sense for comics was from Calvin and Hobbes.
Oh, yeah.
You open a newspaper, and the way he would manipulate panels in that little rectangular box was so... No other cartoonist was doing that in the newspaper, so it always stood out. And it was such a great way of telling stories. He's up there with Will Eisner, in my opinion. Watterson. I can't remember his first name right now. Bill Watterson, yeah, from Calvin and Hobbes. Fantastic storyteller artist. I would love to see him just do a comic book of anything.
He's going to do something again, I hear, but I don't know if it's going to capture the magic that he had with Calvin and Hobbes. He's doing a new project, I've heard.
Oh,
but, get a hold of Jimmy Gownley's Amelia Rules books, because it's kind of like a Charles Schultz Calvin and Hobbes appearance, but it's like 75% hilarious. And then you turn the page and he's like stabbing a knife in your gut and you're like, that wasn't nice. Why'd you do that? Case in point, he's got, one of her friends is telling the story to them about her father just got pulled to Iraq, to active duty. And she's like, he's going to be gone for 2 years or 18 months, whatever it is, like 18 months. And she's like, do you know how long 18 months is? And while she's telling this, you see them at the airport, you see her going up to hug her dad goodbye and all that. And she's like, it's like, I'm just going to make a number up. It's like 1,200,000 seconds. And the very last panel on the page is him walking away, and you turn the page and it's nothing but the stark white background and this little girl recessed into the far edge of it, and one tiny little thought balloon. It says 1001. And I was like, and I'm choking up thinking about it now, because she started counting the seconds the moment the door closed. That's the kind of stuff that he does with comics that you've got to read to appreciate it.
I totally have to check that out. That sounded wonderful and brilliant.
So you got into comics somewhere in your life, though.
What
was your introduction, man?
I've done a lot of comic books, cartoons. None of them really got published. And early in the web, I had a comic strip called Weeping Willows back in like the early 2000s. And it was starting to go good. And then I got rear-ended by a dump truck and gave me a double concussion. And it was just like the magic was gone. It was just like, it's the same thing, but that magic that I had with that comic before the accident was just gone. I never was able to reclaim it or redo anything with those characters so much. I think about it and miss them. And I don't think I've written a comic since then. So this is actually my first comic book I'm doing. All me, writing, lettering, coloring, artwork, everything. My total stint, my Kubrick, if you would, that's the thing. A Kubrick is where you do everything, and Stanley Kubrick pretty much did that in films.
Well, folks, the book we're talking about is Killionaire, and yes, all you keen-eyed people in the audience, I know you're looking, you're saying, hey, 970 of a $7,000 goal with 9 days to go. Wayne, you got to be nervous.
No, I'm crazy. I'm insane. I've already lost count of nervous. I don't even know what to do anymore. It's just like I keep hoping and keep trying to find a way to get it out there for people to appreciate it and try to get in this. Because with this Kickstarter, you're getting the very first issue before it goes to a comic book store, before it goes to conventions. You're getting it. You're getting the very first before anybody else has an ability to get any more. You're getting the first. And that's what I've been trying to tell people. And they're just like, well, give me a copy when you get it printed. I'm like, I can't get it printed until I hit my goal. Yeah. And I'm giving everybody who chips into that the first issue of this series. And we'll get into the whole story of it here shortly, but I think it's probably something the best thing I've done and forever, it feels like. Let me tell you.
Well, I love the title and the logo. I mean, you got the anarchy symbol built into there.
Yeah.
You've got Killionaire, which of course rhymes with millionaire and billionaire. And I'm getting, serious Eat the Rich vibes off of it. Maybe some, Occupy Wall Street, Antifa sort of thing.
It's so cool.
Not that those are things I actually like, but in a story, hey, they make for a great character.
Well, that's the whole thing about this story. About 3 years ago, me and a buddy were talking at a bar workout, and he just went on a rant of how the rich people stamping on the working people and all this, and he got very into politics of it. And he's just like, man, I just like to see something where the tables were turned or something like that. And I was like, how about a serial killer that kills those people? He's like, yeah, do that in a comic book. And I started thinking, that's actually a pretty kooky concept for a comic book,
What they got in common? They're rich.
Yeah. So I just started thinking of, okay, who is he? What's his motive? All this and all this. Who are the characters do I bring in to tell the story? What is the beginning and what is the end? And then finally, in this past January, it all clicked. I got the whole thing mapped out. It's all there. And I started issue 1 and I got that done. And I just want to get this done and get started on issue 2, to tell you the truth. I already have like 7 pages sketched out for issue 2. And I'm just like, I really want to get back to doing that.
Yeah,
that way, so I can get into it. Because
you've got to make the money to make the comic, folks. If it doesn't work here on Kickstarter, I know a place. Place where you can try out. We'll talk about a place where you can fund my comic. Oh, well, never mind. I already said it, didn't I?
Well, I mean, I know I got 9 days, and I think I can. I think someone said I can still change that and extend the deadline. I don't know. I haven't tried it yet.
I don't know how many days you started with.
It's all new to me. I'm going just by what people are telling me at this point.
Yeah, I know you can extend it on Indiegogo. You can go like 30 to 30 for a total of 60. I don't know what you can do on Kickstarter, but we'll see. And again, Fund My Comic is a new thing that's out there that people are starting to check out, get funded on. But it's.
But I mean, if it doesn't get funded this time, I'm definitely making another go of it, and another go of it, and another go of it until I do. Yeah. Because I really think this is a great story. It's probably the best story I've ever written in my life. And that's why I'm doing it. I think it's cool. I love every part of it. I love the way I'm drawing it. It's something I haven't been like in a long time, couple of years. So I'm going to be doing another Kickstarter for this if this one fails. I don't know what
you got to get a video,
but I'll figure something out. But
you got to get a video trailer
until it gets made. That's the thing.
Yep. You got to get that video trailer. People love the video trailer.
I've been trying that, and I guess I'm no Steven Spielberg, so I've done a couple for my TikTok, and they gotten some views and everything. And my YouTube channel, which
you got to put it on your Kickstarter, man.
I got to learn how to do that. Then that'll be the next one. That'll be on the next one when I learn how to do that.
Even if it's just a PowerPoint slideshow with a voiceover, give people something. That's where your elevator pitch hits.
They still do PowerPoint? Is that something?
Dude, I use PowerPoint for everything. I've animated cartoons in PowerPoint. And believe me, you make a 5-minute animated cartoon in PowerPoint on a single slide with like 3,000 animation elements that you got to keep track of, you will lose your mind.
Oh yeah. I went to art school with a lot of animators. Trust me, I've seen them lose their minds.
Because it's not traditional animation where it's like, where's that cell at? Oh, it's this one. I need to fix that. No, it's like you click this and you throw something out. How do these get organized out of the way? Now this guy's walking backwards and
wow.
It's a mess. But I love PowerPoint. I use it for everything.
I'll have to play with PowerPoint and come up with some trailers for this, I think one of the hard part I have with the trailers and what pages to show is because this is obviously my first time out doing this. So I'm going to be making mistakes and I'm going to be learning from them.
Yep.
But for me, this first issue, I keep wondering what pages are giveaways and what aren't. You know what I mean? What's going to give too much of the first issue story away, or what's not going to get enough? You start thinking in those terms, and it's like, I don't know if this panel does that enough. I don't know if this does it too much. So that's insanity right there. What you're talking about, like that organization, trying to go through a 20-page book that you've done and loving everything you did and going, which one's the cool one to show that's going to get people interested? And what's too cool that they're just going to get it and not want to read it anyway? Or what's too little and it doesn't seem interesting?
Yeah, it's
goes through your
brain
for like 30 days and you come out crazy.
So speaking of what we find out and what we don't, tell us about your murderer. Will we Do we know who's doing this? Is this some kind of a Dexter that we want to get behind and root for, or is he more of a comes out at the very end and you kills the millionaire that you spend an entire issue getting to know?
Yes, you will get to know him at the end of the issue. You will see him appearing in points during the issues, because it's going to be 13 issues, and I'm hoping that good enough I can make a graphic novel out of it.
Yeah.
But as far as first chapters go, which is issue 1, it gives a lot of building the characters, and you're going to see a couple of them. Yes, you're going to see the murderer in costume, but you're going to see him in this issue, or her in this issue, I should say, too, because I don't want to give too much away.
A character. It's a masked person. You will find out at the end of the book.
You will get to the end, and I hope it's more of a holy cow, really him,
or her,
or her.
So, is it is there a rhyme and reason to, is there a method to his madness? Is it like, any millionaire will do, or you're the guy who tripled prices on insulin pills when you took over the company?
There's more involved. There is a lot. He has a whole plan. When I developed Billionaire, the idea was someone who is ruthless but also clever, because one of my favorites is, we always say, Hannibal Lecter. Yeah. Hannibal Lecter was the best serial killer in film for me.
He was refined and sophisticated.
Exactly. He was everything: charming, sophisticated, smart, intelligent beyond belief, able to plan stuff out. This is that thing. And there is a plan. The rhyme and reasons fit into the story as it goes along. You may not know it in issue 1, issue 4, it clicks. That's the way I'm kind of developing this comic book, where you get a little bits and pieces along the way, but you're not sure what they link to. The trick is, when you're reading, to find what it's linked to, because it will tell out the story. It will give you clues and hints to put you in the right direction. But you got to be the one to follow it. So it's a bit of a twister in the mind for me. I love mysteries like that. I grew up loving them. So that's one of the reasons why I'm so tight-lipped and not 100% sure what to say at this point.
Yeah, and it's you've already got me trying to put it together. Like, okay, he's killing millionaires. They're not easy to get to unless you're already on the inside. So, maybe he is a millionaire. And he's got a different reason for killing them. They just happen to be millionaires. Here's the basic opening for. Yeah, you definitely didn't give anything away with the first piece of art. This is just
I thought it'd be cool, like a narrator putting in, because that's actually the first things in page 1 before the chapter of what it says there. And I thought of that, back when I was doing the first issue. I wanted to give just a hint of what you're looking at and let the rest of the characters take over the story. So it's not a lot of narration in it. So the characters are driving the story in this book and the series. And I wanted to give at least the reader an idea of what to start with, and letting their imagination kind of fit in the rest as the story goes along with these characters and their interactions. So there's going to be a lot hints towards things that are different 10 years from now. And you're going to see them and you're going to go, that's weird. Why did he do that? Because that may be what might happen in 10 years from now.
Yeah, you're going to plot the future. You've got to think. You got to think weird.
That's true.
Throw some black swans in there, and
there's going to be some weird stuff in it. I just starting off slowly, because it's chapter 1. It's the first issue. Start off slowly, get you going. I hope I didn't start it too slowly, but I think there's some cool action going on in this book.
Yeah. So this is page 1 here. Looks like the story title is "A Job Is Its Own Reward. Don't Ask for More." And I got to tell you, it looks like this guy's taking a leak right next to the potted plant.
I like that. I kind of, for this, when I first opened this, I'm a huge film buff, so I love great movies and great directors. Wes Anderson always had this way of actors standing there with a signage for a chapter in his movies. And I always thought that was kind of cool. And this is Kyle you're going to meet in issue 1. And he's just standing around waiting, being just bored.
Yeah.
Which we've all had when we had to go to an office and wait for our appointments of some sort, right? So that's pretty much how it opens up. Normal, everyday occurrence of people in business and in the world. You know, you're waiting for your appointment to become before you and everything. So I wanted to keep normal in the characters, but some of the things they do that are now considered normal is wait, what? What did they just do? How did that play out? Why is that normal now?
It doesn't take long for the weird to be normal. Just look at 2019 to 2023.
Oh yeah, I know. I lived through it, bro. We all did.
Yeah. Suddenly it's like, wait, that's a thing, isn't it? Okay. I like the Mondrian wall pattern here, the lack of pattern with the Mondrian squares rather. So this is a sort of a Hitchcockian Psycho thing. I mean, anytime that somebody pulls the curtain away and the shower is going, you're expecting to hear I. But no, he's going to get something here.
I love that panel. I love how that just came out. It's so Hitchcock, just like the guy standing there looking at nothing, going, "What's going on? Where is this thing?" And the door's behind him, and so Jason. It's like Jason.
Yeah, and you think he's gonna kill the guy. He's a killer. You can tell because he's got a wife beater on, but he decided to put the gloves on. Put fingerprints off of anything. And this looks like some kind of an investigator who's just made a huge discovery, but a little too late.
He was there to collect some things from that location.
Okay.
I'm not trying to give it all away, but hold on. So he was there to collect some things, and here he's like, this is more than I thought I would find. You know, he was like looking for like a laptop. Instead, he finds all this. And what I love about this room is this is actually the room where Killionaire tells his story, what he's going to be doing in the next 13 issues. So there's clues on that wall that I had to like, okay, wait a minute. What is that person? Oh, let's do a little cartoon after in the corner because he's going to, be in issue 7 and this one's going to be in issue 4. This one's going to be in issue 2, so everything that's going to be happening in all these issues is actually right there on the wall.
Yeah,
and
so
it
kind of definitely not in a place to be.
Huh?
This guy's definitely not in a place he wants to be. In the next 30 seconds.
No, he's not. No, it's not going to end pretty. But if you're cool with, true language, as I like to call it, with swear words now and then and things like that, and seeing somebody being butchered, if you're desensitized to that on a film cartoon level like I am, then you're going to love this book. If you have problems with that, you may not like this book.
Well, it's a serial killer, and for whatever reason, serial killers and vampires both have this fascination and allure built into them where otherwise rational and normal people want to know more about them. It's like,
as a married man, I can tell you there has been many nights I have laid awake worried because my wife has watched some serial killer program. How the serial killer did it, what his motivations, how he started, where he finished the bodies. And like the wife's just sitting there like, huh, really? And I'm just like,
well, she's taking notes, then you can worry. Or, she's watched The Burning Bed for the 3rd time that week.
Gotta be careful of mental notes, man. They take mental notes.
Yes, they do. But yeah, we just love the serial killer. I remember a serial killer comic way back in the early 90s that I only read one issue of, and I loved it, and I never found any more copies, called Twister. And I can't
the bell. Yeah,
I want to say he killed people by twisting their necks, but his pattern was he was a serial killer who only killed serial killers.
Oh, the Dexter approach.
Yeah, the Dexter approach, but way before Dexter.
Oh,
was a
yeah.
thing.
That's awesome. I may have to look for that issue, some issues of that, if it's still out there anywhere. That's kind
And of course, cool. Dexter just killed bad people who deserved to die. They weren't necessarily serial killers, but that was his thing. He's like, okay, who's the next serial killer on the list that the FBI is looking for? Okay, you're my target, and finds him and kills him because he can think like that.
Yeah, with this story, Killionaire, though, is something I keep teeter-tottering on with my writing the story. Do I want him to be the bad guy, or the people he's killing being the bad guy? Because they can be both.
Yeah.
And depending on where you're looking from, what your point of view is, where you're standing on that pattern in that story, it could be both, or it could be one or the other. And I kind of wanted to have him first coming out. Everybody, of course, the media and everybody's going to target him and everything for being the serial killer. But I want him to build like a Punisher kind of adorance from, fans. I hope you guys love him that way that I'm trying to make him, I hope you're getting it.
Yeah. And there's a difference between a serial killer and a person who kills a lot of people. There can be a guy with a revenge list, a hit list, like taking out you and you and you and you and you. That's not the same thing as somebody who's like, you have blonde hair and look like my mother.
Yeah. Or you have over $25 billion in the account, your checking accounts, and you don't do anything with it. You don't build new enterprises. You don't give to charity, whatever his reasons are from that. But if everybody has like that certain dollar level that he targets, that's his method. That's his serial killer,
So that's
all
something
within
that triggers
that pattern. It's like guys who have red shirts or guys who have blue shirts,
Yeah, because there's always that thing that links them all together in either appearance or actions or personality. So he'd be looking for rich sloths.
Right. Well, basically, they're just huge, super wealthy. They're money hoarders. They're money hoarders. They hoarded all the money and they keep wanting more and more and more. And they don't want to give a dime up of it. And, just like the hoarders, where you go into the house and it's full of newspapers from like past 20 years and boxes with old library books. These are the kind of people you go in their house and it's just money everywhere.
Scrooge's money vault.
Expensive art that really doesn't mean anything. That's expensive, and stuff like that. They live in what you want to call laps of luxury. Sounds like you're living in a museum to me. I would not approve of it, but that's me. I'd have a different style of how I like to be comfortable. But those are his targets, the ones who just exhume wealth. I am rich, the over-the-top billionaires, I guess you want to call them, the crazy ones, really. Sometimes it's like.
So you've got this murder mystery going on, and we know who all the victims are, and we know who the kind of sort. We have a focal point for the killer, even if we don't know who it is until a certain point.
Right.
But to tell that kind of story, the eyeballs that you really want to be looking through are the investigator, the guy who's trying to catch the guy. And I'm assuming you've got one.
I got you beat. I got more than one.
Okay.
This when I was writing this, I kept thinking, okay, who's the detective? The serial killer, crime mystery. You got to have a detective, right? We all know it. You just mentioned it. We have to have one. It's part of the story. It has to have one. So when I was developing detectives I wanted to use, I kept running into one trap. These are the ultra rich people. They're not just going to wait for the cop detective to do it. They're going to hire their own guy.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to hire the assassins. They're going to hire a hitman. They're going to hire the world's greatest detective if they can find him and pay him enough money. They're going to also have the police detective. So in this story, they're all there. I have a police detective. I have a great detective. I have an assassin, hitman. They're all doing the same thing, trying to find out, and they're crossing into each other during the story, which I love, because some will work together. It's like Survivor. Some will work together. Others, I don't want to work with anybody.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you're the police detective and you know who the hitman is, you're like, hey, you were on the last murder. Now you're suspicious, because you got those preconceived ideas, and there's like every time I'm investigating one of these murders, you show up. And the guy says, well, you do too. So,
yeah. But in like issue 2, you're going to see the detective assigned by the police force. His name is Orion Wilson. And you're going to see him. He's going to take over pretty much all issue 2 is going to have him involved because he takes over. But the character from issue 1 is going to be repeating throughout the whole series. You meet her on page 2, Karen Carter. She's an executive for Unicorp, where, she's the one that had the appointment with Kyle. And so she's going to make an appearance. And then you're going to have the private detective being introduced in like issue 3, and like issue 5, the hitman is hired because it's been several murders later and they still haven't gotten anything. And so someone is shelling out the money to hire a hitman. And of course, when you got that much money and you're that powerful in the rich and powerful aristocracy world that we kind of believe we have here in America, they can get away with it, right? That's the whole thing.
It sounds like you've got everything plotted down on paper for 13 issues.
I have it all plotted down all the way through 13 issues. It took me believe it or not, it only took me a couple of days. After 3 years of thinking it over, it kind of just all poured out like water. I was just like, this happens over here, and this happens here, and this happens here. So it really just came out. And I think it's one of the reasons why I'm so excited about it. 3 years of thinking about it, and then just like in 2 months, it just poured right out, and issue 1 was underway. So it's just an amazing feeling that every day, getting that work done, getting in on it. It was just so wonderful. I just love it so much. So I'm going to keep trying until I get you guys interested, but I hope you're going to like it, because I'm loving it.
Well, everybody who's watching right now, the link for this Kickstarter is right below the video. It's been there the whole time, in the description. First thing you see, you can click on it right now, in fact, and throw money at this project if it's something that you want to put into your collection. It's not your typical superhero fare. You've got a masked person. You might think he's a hero or she's a hero to your sensibilities, but it's not that kind of a universe, unless you've got the world's greatest detective also in this mix here and just happens to wear a cape.
He doesn't have a cape. But he's got a sidekick. His wife's sidekick. Is that cool?
Oh, Nick and Nora. Okay, cool. Yeah.
He's going to make an appearance in issue 3. He'll be introduced in issue 3. So the kind of chapters kind of open up on a character, and then you're going to see how they're all interacting in the story later on. That's kind of how I have the story mapped out, and that's the way I like stories mapped out. It reminds me of Chris Claremont from the old X-Men days, where the characters had such a great part of the story. They weren't just there acting out; they were interacting in small things on the side that kind of brought you in.
Yeah,
they're human.
There was some. The X-Men, that run of X-Men was still in the era where you could pick up a comic book, you could read it, and you got, this is what happened. This was the story in this issue.
Yeah,
but it was still, you had that long form storytelling going on there. Where he just drops it, a little thing here, and then maybe he drops it another few issues later. It's like, oh wait, what's he doing here? This is a soap opera all of a sudden.
I know. Chris Claremont, you kids cannot say enough good words of how a great comic book writer he was.
He's still got subplots he hadn't wrapped up yet from the 80s.
Oh, I know. It's just too many. He worked himself too hard of just everything.
Never thought there'd be another writer on X-Men, I guess, but
I don't think at the time any of us wanted one. We just wanted more Chris. But yeah, those are the influences
John
that
Byrne.
kind of taught me how to do this. That made my artwork and make the book and how a story should be told. So,
yeah, you told us when you started drawing comics. When did you become a fan of comics?
I was 14 years old. I found an old Batman and the Outsiders comic book in my garage. I haven't seen it years too. Still pretty good condition. I knew a buddy of mine in high school or junior high back then. Was like, hey, I knew he was in the comic book, so I was like, hey, I found this one. Is this any good? He's like, oh wow, and it was like an issue number 7 or something. And he was actually looking for. He's like, you know what? I'll give you 2 X-Men for this. And I'm like, okay. And they were Mark Severa. Remember him when he drew the X-Men back in the 80s, late and mid 80s? His artwork was just, or late 80s, yeah. I can't remember when Mark took over now. I'm so old. But his artwork just blew me away. I was like, holy cow. You can draw stuff like this? This is a way you can draw and do things? Yep. So I kind of got into comic books at that point. And as I kept going into like checking this artist out, okay, people mentioning Jack Kirby. Who's he? Oh, I go back, I look at his stuff, and I'm like, holy cow. This is done before I was born. This is amazing,
Check out some Master Boy sometime.
And then you check out the Will Eisner, because you hear everybody talk about, in books referring to Will Eisner. So you go check his stuff out and you read his books and you see his artwork. And it's just like, he just did it out of nothing, just at a wooden table with brush, ink, and pencil and idea, and did it. And back
his
in those
iPad
days,
was here's I and here's my pad.
Yeah, back in those days, that was the way we did comics. That's where I learned the first 2 comics and cartoons. So then, of course, come the digital age, and I got to learn all this on my computer to do it, which is amazing because I can pretty much do anything I could do on my table on here, and I don't have to buy all the expensive inks and brushes and supplies now.
Yeah. And
but
you
I
don't have to worry about spilling any
on my drawing table over here. But
you don't have to worry about spilling anything on the Bristol board and starting over. You're like, oh, we'll just undo that and we'll try it a different way.
I used to have a white opaque paint. I could paint over mistakes on some Bristol boards to get rid of some of those ink mistakes or a splot here and there or something like that, and it would clear it up. The problem with that is, as it aged, you can really see that paint compared to the rest of the paper, because the paper will age, the paint won't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Batman and the Outsiders, by the way, was a great series. I was there when it kicked off. When Batman quit the Justice League for probably the first time, I guess.
I want to say, I think you're right.
It was a dramatic exit. They were like voting on keeping him. He's like, I'll make it easy for you. I'll quit. And he's like, off on his own again. But then, all these different characters just started arcing in towards this central point, and suddenly they were all in one place at one time. And he's like, you all need trained. You're going to kill each other if you don't.
It was a great series. But I think one of the things I really kind of drew me back in when I was comics was looking at Neil Adams' Batman. The artwork was so wonderful and beautiful, and the storytelling was so cool with the inks and the way it just looked. So those influences just built into me as an artist, and I play with them too much because it's fun. It's fun to draw something in a Jack Kirby style. I mean, if you've never done it, try doing it. It's fun. Or
a lot of crackle and lines in it.
Yeah, with the little bumps along the edges and the little the Kirby dots everywhere. Oh man, it's so much fun. It's like playing with it's like getting your old bike and just riding it for the heck of it, kind of drawing that way sometimes.
I've seen him draw.
It's his style, and it's beautiful, and you can never claim it as yours because everybody already knows that's his style. So you can play with it and have fun because you're not stealing it. I'm just drawing Galactus the way I draw Galactus, but I'm using his style to look like something he would do, which nobody could do. So I'm not.
Have you ever seen those kids coloring art pages where it's a blank piece of paper and you get a wet brush and you start wetting the paper and the color starts to show as the picture gets revealed. I've seen a video of Jack drawing, or no, I heard the story of how Jack would draw, and it was literally like that. There was none of this blue lining and body shaping. They said he just went to the top left corner of the paper and started drawing and worked his way down to the bottom right, and it just all kind of just was there, and he was just scratching the pencil on top of what was supposed to be there. It was.
That is
very few people can do that.
Yeah, you're correct. You're correct. That's like Pablo Picasso or Van Gogh. He had that talent that could just so uniquely his.
Just drew it.
And every artist tries to find that. And it's not easy to find, let me tell you, as an artist. I've been looking for years. I still haven't found it, I don't think. But maybe I have with this. Maybe Killionaire is it. But you try to find that style, and it's a hard thing to find sometimes, especially when you're doing somebody else's story, which is not, maybe this is my style of drawing in this way. When I'm doing other people's stories, I always have a concept that I have to adhere to. It's a superhero comic book. It's dark, it's gritty, it's more lighthearted and cartoony. So that kind of gets in the way of how you want to tell a story sometimes, because you're putting it into like a genre, and sometimes my art never really matched up with it, and it kind of upset me a lot. Even though everybody else seemed to love it, for me, it was upsetting.
Yeah, well, you still want to do your own thing, and that's what this is here.
That's what this is here. So the one thing I love about it is the way I'm drawing it. I have panels of city skylines. I did not use a ruler on, and it's got that little bit of a waviness line to it, but
yeah.
It reminds me of the old cartoons we used to watch and comics we used to draw where they did that. And that's not a bad thing sometimes, So I love that with playing with it. And the best part is I don't have a writer telling me to change it.
No, it's just yourself. You got the worst boss in the world, actually.
I do. And then sometimes I have the best one because I'll just draw this way like this. And I'm like, oh, that's good. That's good. We're keeping that.
Yeah. But sometimes, artists are the ones who are least satisfied with what they're drawing. So, pleasing your boss is almost an impossible task at some points, I bet, where, at least I've heard artists be that way, where they're like this, like, I'd still change this or I'd do that. And I'm like, no, perfect is the enemy of done.
Exactly. And I'm trying to get this whole thing done. I want it done. I want to do it, and I want to get it done fast because I don't know what the next idea is going to be or when it's going to pop in my head. So
you want to have a clean plate for that.
Yeah. But this one, I keep on track. This one's awesome. Killionaire is going to be a great story for me, in my opinion, because I wrote it and I like it so much. I'm hoping you find it the same. I can't wait to see your opinion on it when you see it. And when you read the whole 13 issues and we get to the end of this together, you can definitely tell me good or bad. I'm ready to go to work.
I want to see it. I love the logo on the wall there. All of your money will not buy mercy. It's that's very Silver Age kind of gritty. That's something I would expect to see in like one of the Neil Adams Green Arrow, Green Lantern crossover things, where he just had the big hand-drawn letters on a wall there. None of this fancy font stuff where everything was like straight line. Like, no, this M is not this M, and it's not that M. They're all hand-drawn.
Well, I remember I knew this was going to be the great project for me to do. When I said, okay, if it's going to be called Killionaire, that's the title. I need to come up with a title thing. I'm not very good at lettering, typography. Lettering I can do. I know how to do it. I don't get too caught up in it. Typography is something you have to get caught up in. And how it's all this and that and how the lines mess with the people's eyes. I don't get it. I'm clueless to that. I can do lines and color. The whole with the letters does not work. So I remember I set myself an assignment. You need to draw 5 sketches of the Killionaire title logo for your comic book. 5 of them. And you need to pick one. And I was being hard on myself. I'm like, but what if I want to do 10? No, just do 5. We have other things to do and you got to get done.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I did 5. I did this one first. And I never did another 4.
You didn't have to.
I didn't have to. I saw this and I'm like, I saw all the lines and the dripping blood and the anarchy A, and I'm like, no, this is it. We're good.
Yeah,
Bang.
That's it. Folks in the chat want to remind you, top of the hour here as we're closing things down, head over to the mic stand for Mike Walters' nightly niche news, everything that's happening in comics, manga, anime, and professional wrestling. Always, like to go raid the channel, folks, when we leave here. So 9 days from now, if you're not at $7,000, and you can't extend it, if you find out that, hey, this is
then I'm going to have to. Well, obviously, I don't get whatever's in there now. It goes back to whoever.
Sure.
I didn't hit my goal.
Yeah, they won't.
So then I'm going to have to redo this page and try it again for another 30 or 90 days, and try it again until I get it, because it needs to be done, and I'm going to get it done.
And the dollar amount that you're shooting for is not all that high, really. But,
yeah. It would have been cheaper a couple years ago. My friends love to tell me, because printing costs have all gone up everywhere. Yep. And I was like, oh, now you tell me that. So it is what it is. It's more expensive than it would have been, but that's still not I've seen others more expensive than mine. So
yeah, I've seen them a lot higher. And printing and distribution. Well, customer pays for the distributions. That's not really an issue there, but printing's expensive.
It is, and it's scary expensive nowadays, because my paycheck has not gone up.
Yeah, funny how that works. The printing of the checks hasn't changed for the printing of the books.
Maybe they deserve a Killionaire.
Okay, got to strike this channel.
I just keep loving playing with this character. It's like sometimes it's like having your own Joker to play with. You invented a Joker and it's yours. You can play with him like up against Batman and Robin and everything. To me, sometimes that's what it gets into, and I get a little carried away with it.
I was gonna say, does it get into your headspace, the thing? Because I've written the Destroyer, who's also an assassin, and I've got to think of things that are evil enough to have happen to merit his attention, because he's it's above the FBI, above the CIA. Oh no, we're sending in the Destroyer. Well, what's that got to take? And
I was just thinking, it gets in your head. You start thinking like, okay, he gets this guy. What's he gonna do to him? What do I want done to him? What can I show being done to him? Because I have to draw this for people to see what's being done to him. How bad do you want to go? And some of the things that, when it comes to the victims and how he gets in, how it works out, sometimes it's just, ooh, that's so sinister.
Yeah.
Not that shocking, but still sinister,
But sinister can be fun.
It is, definitely. But you can't be the good boy all the time.
No, of course not. All right. Well, Wayne, thank you so much for bringing the book onto our show tonight. I want to read it. So however we got to make this come to fruition. If you launch again, let us know. We'll have you on.
I will.
We'll do a launch show or something. We can catch you on the ground floor again.
Sounds good to me. If it doesn't go the next 9 days, we're going to try again. And I will definitely let you know. If we do try again, we'll do a launch show, man. This is fun. I'm not sure if I really promoted my book enough or said my title enough, but I had fun talking to you guys and talking about my book, and hopefully we'll do it again. I got 13 issues yet to do too,
Yeah, and I want to see all of them. All right. Folks in the chat, thank you so much for showing up tonight. We don't have a show without you guys. I'm just a podcast falling in the woods without you. And we appreciate you being here. I want you to truly know that. Please share this video out so that people can meet Wayne and find out about his book. I don't care about myself. I always say that. It's the views I get are the views I get. But you have friends that I don't know, and maybe they would be interested in seeing Killionaire. So, pass it around. That's how the social media thing actually works. And, of course, as always, while you were here, we just hope you had a blast.